Our top story this hour, what could be North Korea's fourth nuclear test? Pyongyang says it tested its first hydrogen bomb on Tuesday. The claim is spreading alarm among North Korea's neighbours, and the UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting at this hour. But officials and analysts are expressing doubts about the test. They say the amount of energy produced by the explosion was too small to be caused by a hydrogen bomb. I'm joined now from Washington by Victor Cha. He holds the Korea Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and is the Director of Government and International Affairs at Georgetown University. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Now, Mr. Cha, there is a lot of skepticism about whether North Korea actually has the capability of launching a hydrogen bomb. If it is true, how significant is it?
Well, if it is true, it would mean that they have effectively moved from a crude plutonium program, which they started about 25 years ago, to really the second generation of nuclear weapons and nuclear technology, moving from a fission device to a fusion device, which is exponentially more powerful. But the verdict's still out on that. We don't know for sure, based on the readings of the Richter scales in the area, whether this was truly a hydrogen bomb or a thermonuclear test.
Now, Mr. Cha, you served as Director for Asian Affairs at the White House on the National Security Council. They've put out a statement. Their spokesman, Ned Price, said, and I quote, "North Korea has conducted its first nuclear test in 2006 and until today has done so twice since, but we have consistently made it clear that we will not accept it as a nuclear state." Can you explain why it won't accept North Korea as a nuclear state?
Well, I think that if the United States or any of the other members of the international community formally recognize North Korea as a nuclear weapon state, it would essentially be a huge blow to the non-proliferation treaty regime, because North Korea is probably the worst violator of the NPT regime. And if countries were to acknowledge that they are now a nuclear weapon state, it would effectively show that they have violated successfully the regime and violated in spite of the fact that there have been 3 UN Security Council resolutions and a whole battery of sanctions on North Korea. So I think that's why the United States does not want to recognize North Korea. Also, North Korea wants to be sitting with the United States negotiating arms control as an established nuclear weapon state, like the United States did with the Soviet Union during the Cold War. That's their ultimate objective, and of course, that is not the U.S. objective. The U.S. wants North Korea to engage in a negotiation to denuclearize, to get rid of their nuclear weapons. So I think for these two reasons, it's hard for the NSC to acknowledge that North Korea is a nuclear weapon state.
So even though it doesn't acknowledge it, they are talking about what other sanctions they can put in place right now. Some skeptics, though, believe that this wasn't a hydrogen bomb. In your opinion, does it matter what type of nuclear bomb it was? Clearly they are moving ahead with the development of nuclear weapons.
Yeah, Lynda, I think that's the main point. I mean, there will be a scientific and an academic debate about whether it was a hydrogen device or not. I think the bigger and more important point is that they are improving their programs. They've gone, again, from a crude plutonium program to a uranium program, and now talk of a fusion device, which is a big step, a big important step in terms of advancement of capability. So the main message, I think, for policy is that North Korea is not simply happy with just having a couple of nuclear weapons. It wants to build a survivable and modern and lethal nuclear weapons force. And they're about the worst regime in the world that's trying to do this. So that is not a very good picture for the United States or for other countries in the world.
And just finally, many say that China is key to any sanctions that would matter to North Korea. What can we expect from China?
Well, it's a good question. I think all eyes will be on China. I think that they will support whatever action the UN Security Council takes in the coming week. But the real question will be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month later, how vigilant will China be in terms of enforcing sanctions, in terms of embargoing trade with North Korea, in terms of carefully watching shipments coming out of North Korea through Chinese ports or Chinese airspace. These are going to be the big questions. And thus far, the Chinese record in this regard has not been stellar. It's been quite bad. And that is one of the reasons why North Korea has been able to advance its capabilities.
Victor Cha, we appreciate your perspective on all of this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.